All right, hello everybody. I'm back. Now this is my more preferred talk of the day because it's actually fun. So yeah, let's talk about how to vibe code. What is vibe coding? So there's actually a Merriam-Webster definition for that now, believe it or not. And it's a recently coined term for the practice of writing code by just telling an AI program what you want and letting it create the product for you. You don't have to understand how it works. And you have to accept that there's going to be a certain number of bugs and glitches. I guess the verb form of it is vibe code. Okay, very helpful. Thank you. So now I want to take a survey of the vibe of the room. So who thinks vibe coding is here to stay? Raise your hand. Okay, we have like a third of the room thinks it's here to stay. Who thinks vibe coding is a fad? Raise your hand. Okay, it's another third. What about the last third? What do y'all think? Shout it out and I'll relay it to the mic.
What happens, happens.
What happens, happens? Okay, all right. What else? Anything else? Okay, huh?
It's better for new software than existing software.
Yaron says it's better for new software than existing software. Okay, all right. Anything else? Okay. Okay, but fine. Who here thinks vibe coding just is straight up stupid? Doesn't work at all? Didn't you raise your hand for like, it's here to stay? Oh, right, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, yeah. So this is a very nuanced topic. I hope it's not controversial. So let me go over some arguments in favor and then arguments against. The first one is it's easy to write code with. You know, all you have to do is know how to type a language and give instructions, although that's also a tall ask. And yes, this is notwithstanding the quality of the code produced, which is a totally different matter. The second is it's possible to produce large amounts of code at once, right? I mean, you just can't, pardon?
Is that a good thing?
All right, hold on. Hold on, there's a whole talk ahead. Cindy's saying, is that even a good thing that you're producing large amounts of code at once? We'll see. Third is it fills in the details for you. Well, kind of. And then number 4, the developer can stop spending time on mundane, repetitive coding and focus on the overarching idea instead, in theory. Arguments against, so many times the first code produced does not immediately compile, to say the least. Number 2, the long-term maintainability might be compromised, to say the least. Number 3, an amalgam of different coding styles might be produced, to say the least. And number 4, the code written might be insecure, to say the least. So I found this on LinkedIn the other day. I thought it was funny. I'll read it out loud. I'm sorry. I just don't agree with tech CEOs saying software engineers will be completely replaced in 18 months. I use the technology every day, and it's nowhere near being able to replace me. I have replaced 12 engineers and QAs at my company with AI and automation. It's coming, and we are a large company. Those that don't actually understand how to implement AI and prompt it will not be useful in 3 years, seriously. You might need to hire someone. Your site doesn't even have SSL. So that's a cautionary parable for sure. Okay, so what are my experiences then? So as you all know, I work at Microsoft as my day job, and we have to use GitHub Copilot, so none of that cursor, whatever crap. Just kidding. Cursor I've heard is good, but I can't use it at work, obviously. So we get to use various models. I think the default is GPT-4o, which I'm going to explain soon why that's really weird. My favorite recently among the models we're allowed to use is Claude 3.7 Sonnet. And the more recent models are really great at generating unit tests is what I found. I was able to generate like 5 or 6 unit tests for like a few lines of code that I pushed out a few weeks ago, and they all passed immediately. And looked at all of them, and I'm like, yeah, that's the business logic. So actually pretty impressive. I was great. I was so happy I went home early for that day. So what do I want to make from vibe coding for MediaWiki? I was thinking of, I have a few ideas, right? The first one is writing an anti-spam extension. I wonder when we talked about that. The second is creating a passkey extension built off of pluggable auth. So that's kind of a hybrid of like building off of existing stuff, but it's a new code space. And then the third is like straight up brownfield, as Yaron was mentioning, like it's building off of the existing MediaWiki's LLM search extension. So I first started with the passkey extension. I didn't mention the writing anti-spam extension because, I mean, I don't remember if I talk about it later, but as you can see, like, there was an anti-spam extension, and if you read that code, it's actually all Vibecoded. So, what's the laughter? It works. It runs on production. Okay, anyway, save your judgment for later. Passkey extension. So I started with asking, how do I make a MediaWiki authentication extension built on Pluggable Auth 7.5? And I asked this to Gemini 2.5 Pro because it seemed to be the strongest option for coding at the time, is what my friend tells me. And it says, you know, here's how you do it, here's the concepts, blah, blah, blah. Not bad, you know? I've written my own Pluggable Auth extension BC before ChatGPT. And so I can kind of vouch for it. The creator of Pluggable Auth is here, so if she sees any inaccuracies with this, she can call it out immediately. But I was like, yeah, this seems about right. So, right, accurate. It even provided code examples that were pretty comprehensive and included a valid extension.json and PHP files. It should be fully sufficient for creating a MediaWiki extension. This is just a skeleton, by the way. This is not actually anything implemented yet. So I was like, okay, great. So building off of the previous queries, let's use that as context, right? Now I'll explore how do we implement these things in general. So then I first ask about, like, what's a passkey? Like, how do I implement passkeys on a website? And then, of course, I asked about Pluggable Auth extensions in general. And then, for a complex idea, I was like, okay, wonderful. You know what? Everyone gives crap about you know, creating big, you know, code, blah, blah, blah. So how about I am very specific about what I want? And so I write up this entire essay. I spent 10 minutes writing it after a few beers, and, or was it soju? I forgot. And it's actually quite, you know, verbose and detailed, right? I tell it what library it could be using. The name should be called passkey auth. You know, the file structure of you know, the Pluggable Auth hook that it should be hooking into, a new special page that it should be created so that you can use that to create your passkey, use the Wikimedia Codex PHP library for the UI, and so there's a lot of requirements, project requirements, all defined over here, and then even describing the database table and saying, hey, don't write raw SQL. Use the JSON format that MediaWiki has for database tables. And then at the end, create unit tests for all of business logic using PHP unit, and be sure to factor out the business logic into its own file. So this is all I asked Gemini to do this. These were the files generated. You know, there was quite a lot. You see the service wiring. You know, the helper stuff. You'll even see like tests later. The screenshot was too long to include everything, but you get the point. But then, after I asked that question, it was like, yeah, you gotta pay. So I was like, no, okay. So I went to ChatGPT, and I have a Plus subscription for ChatGPT. And I decided to ask O3, the model called O3, to generate the code using the same long prompt. So I didn't, you know, copy over any code. I just, you know, had the same long prompt there. And I started comparing the generated code between 2.5 Pro and O3. And, you know, they had somewhat different approaches and different naming styles. I thought 2.5 Pro had more features and better organization. But the issue was 2.5 Pro also, look at line 159 here. What on earth is that, right? Do get space möglich? I don't know what on earth that means. I can only assume it's German. I've never seen an umlaut and a space in a function name. We have one of the PHP's 8.5 release managers here. Is this valid PHP?
No.
No, it's not. Okay, good job, Google. So, yeah. Zindagi sundar nahi hai. If you understand Hindi, you'll get the joke. Passkey extension continued. So code generated by both 2.5 Pro and GPT-03, it's not immediately usable. You got a lot of code generated at once, but there were many mistakes, fundamental issues, would take a while to fix all the errors. So yes, I think asking to vibe code a complex extension is unrealistic. You probably do want to start bit by bit at this moment, even if you give such a big, descriptive, prompt. So let's start by just creating a simple extension from scratch, or improve upon an existing extension. So I decided, because we already talked about the security stuff, which I did code from scratch, and that was the result, let's talk about something in the middle, which was building off of an existing brownfield project. And then, it has existing code that does work. It was written by a human, or at least vouched by a human. Let me think. No, that was fully coded by me. Yeah. So, but why did I want to vibe code this one? So there's a few reasons. First of all, I'm not a UI expert. I have not spent years studying CSS. It turns out that these LLMs are actually pretty darn good at creating the kind of styles that you want. So you don't have to necessarily hire a UX designer anymore. If you want a passable UI, no problem. You can actually just tell it, hey, I want a chat interface. I'll show you what I did later. And I even told it, hey, by the way, I'm on MediaWiki 1.39. Can you use OUI for me to make this? And so it even, did that. I've been told that this needs to be a lightning talk, so let me speed up a little bit. And so this builds off an existing extension. Hopefully it'll, reduce the amount of time done. So it didn't get the code working on the first try. I did need to feed it some more human insight about the code being written for a newer version of MediaWiki. It just assumed. But that was kind of my fault, right? I should have said, hey, by the way, this should be compatible with MediaWiki 1.39. Otherwise, it kind of mixes the versions up, and it just starts doing includes from new libraries or whatever from MediaWiki 1.43, etc. And so it is necessary to iterate on the mistakes of the LM. But eventually, the code actually did work with lots of trial and error. These are some of the screenshots of the examples I would give. I was very patient with it. I would say, okay, this is an error I'm facing now, and let me just wait. What do you do now, right? I also switched back and forth between 03 and 04 mini high. Now, if you watch this talk in a year, this is going to be like, you were using that back then? Oh my gosh. But as of today, these are the most advanced reasoning models available on chatgpt.com. And I use 03 for the more complex questions and 04 mini high for the more reasonable questions. The finished product is this. This actually works. I showed Joseph this earlier today. And look at that. Now you have a nice chatbot interface. You can just type your message and send it in there, and this was 100% vibe coded. So my strategy now for vibe coding is you do want to start doing research by yourself. You don't want to let the LLM make all the architectural decisions for you. This is why senior engineers still have jobs. So be a senior engineer. Put your senior or principal engineer hat on and think about what approach do I want to take, and you have to be the one to control that. Craft your comprehensive strategy, then use a reasoning model to generate code. So don't use ChatGPT 4.0. It's not a reasoning model. It's just a general purpose model. You want to use stuff like 03, 04 mini high, Gemini 2.5 Pro, Flash, etc. Be as specific as possible as you can. Pick what model you want to pick. I've been told that 2.5 Pro seems to be the best for code generation, but as you saw, we ran into the quota. So, realistically, it's whatever you can get the most quota for, and ration your quota because 03 doesn't have, you don't get too many per week. You can switch around the models, rate limits, yeah, and then the conclusion is vibe coding, I think, does work if you know how to tame the beast. Experienced coders can use it to simplify the code writing part, especially if you know what you're doing. The better that you can explain, and the more details you give about the implementation strategy, the faster you can generate working code. So then come up with a strategy and a code structure before asking the LLM to generate code. want to give my acknowledgments to my friends who helped me with some of the information here. Any questions? I think we're out of time, so just ask me on Element. Thank you.